Today, I'm going to talk to you about a big picture idea, technological disruption. This is an important consideration for how you choose to strategically approach your professional life. Now, this isn't something you're going to find in any textbook, but I've decided to include this discussion in this course because I truly believe this is something we all ought to be thinking about regularly. Now, a big disclaimer here. I'm not actually an expert in this area, but then again, even the thought leaders aren't sure with how the accounting profession and how the economy overall is going to be impacted by disruption over the next 5 years. But I still believe there's value in taking time to thoughtfully consider ways in which we can still add value in an age of increasingly pervasive artificial intelligence. Now, if you'll indulge me, I'm going to try to illustrate this point with a history lesson, looking back to the introduction of electronic spreadsheets. I mean, it's at least tangentially related to what we're talking about in class, right? But I think it serves to really depict how disruption has impacted the profession historically and might suggest ways in which we approach our professional lives going forward.
Let's go back in time to the 1970s, a time when the term spreadsheet actually referred to large physical sheets of paper, sometimes taped together, and they would be spread all over one's desk. Every business used spreadsheets. This is where much of the detailed information about a company was kept and analyzed. Forecasts, budgets, any sort of financial analysis that needed to be performed, you were probably doing it on spreadsheets. So picture working back then, and your manager asks you to put together a spreadsheet to make sales and earnings projections for the next several fiscal quarters. To complete this work, you're going to perform a lot of arithmetic calculations by hand. Now imagine what it would feel like if, as you've been working on this for a whole day on this project, your hand is aching from all the numbers you've been writing, that you made a mistake early on in your work. And as a result, every subsequent number that relied upon that initial calculation is wrong. Or better yet, what if your boss comes back to you later in the day and says, that sales growth rate I told you to use, I was just talking to our marketing team, and I need you to adjust that from 5% to 3%. Again, you have to start over from scratch. Now, let's transport ourselves to a classroom in the Harvard Business School, where one MBA student named Dan Bricklin was daydreaming in the middle of a lecture. The professor was creating a complex financial model on the chalkboard with formulas and data provided in a table. Dan noticed that whenever the professor made a mistake or wanted to change a parameter, he had to erase everything he had done and rewrite it all to move forward. And an idea came to him. He thought, man, wouldn't it be nice if there were magic chalkboards that would simply update everything else you've done simply by changing the formulas or the numbers you've supplied them? So with this dream and a friend with programming expertise, Dan developed VisiCalc, the first electronic spreadsheet software. It was revolutionary. You could input numbers in distinct identifiable cells, and you could construct formulas in other cells, referencing these numbers to perform calculations. One of the amazing things is that when you change the cells that were referenced in any formula, the program would automatically and dynamically update the spreadsheet in an instant. Now, this is obviously something that we just take for granted today, but this was miraculous back then. Your work was now flexible to changing assumptions, and computational errors were essentially eliminated. A computer was handling the calculations. So VisiCalc quickly became the most popular software for use on computers of that era. Now obviously, we don't use VisiCalc today. It was actually acquired by a company called Lotus, another company you've probably never heard of. Lotus developed the software my dad used, an accountant, in the 80s. But by the 1990s, a company that you probably have heard of, Microsoft, put out a program called Excel, and that has been the dominant spreadsheet software to the present day. Okay, almost done with our history lesson. I want us to think about how the introduction of spreadsheet software impacted the accounting profession, specifically with how this impacted the labor force. Pause the video and come up with your own ideas. Another way of thinking about this, if you were an accountant in the early 80s, was this a positive development for you? Why or why not? There's no right or wrong answers here. I just want to know what you think about it. Okay, So one of the drawbacks of having you watch a video is I can't respond to your thoughts, but I would have loved to hear your theories. Let me give you a couple of my own takeaways. Number one, technology made accountants more efficient, which means you didn't need as many people to get the job done. This would lead you to predict that this had a negative impact on the labor force. Jobs were being destroyed. But number two, the cost of accounting significantly declined, which means that many businesses could suddenly afford to purchase a variety of accounting services that they previously couldn't. Well, if we need more accounting, we need more accountants. So this must have been a positive impact on the labor force. Okay, so how are we going to reconcile these opposing forces? Well, ultimately, during the 80s and 90s, many bookkeeping jobs were in fact destroyed. It simply didn't require as many people to do the clerical work. But at the same time, hundreds of thousands of professional accountancy jobs were created. More complex tasks to work on, more opportunities to advance. Accountants were making more money than ever. Overall, this was a net benefit for the average worker in our profession. And what was the single dimension that determined whether you kept your job? Your ability to use a computer and manipulate spreadsheet software. In other words, your ability to adapt to technological developments. Let's relate this back to the present. How might disruption impact the accounting profession today? Well, analogously to the introduction of spreadsheet software, disruption comes with risks. Risks that you can't meet the demands of your job because of an inability to keep up with tech advances. Perhaps risks that your specific job is automated, or in an extreme case, your entire industry is done away with. But as we also saw, disruption can also present opportunities. Opportunities to make your work more efficient, to become more valuable. So as you and I both navigate the ongoing disruption that surrounds us, let's do our best to be flexible, to adapt so that we can mitigate the risks and capitalize on the opportunities. Here, I've collected a variety of headlines from popular media and practitioner publications that emphasize how the accounting profession has been ripe for disruption. One thing I should note, every single one of these articles was written before the public release of ChatGPT. So with the advent of AI, it is going to be more important than ever to adapt to the changing landscape. So how do you go about doing this? I think the fact that you're in a college class about technology is a pretty good start. Which brings me to one final point here. What do you hope to get out of this class? Obviously, a lot of the motivation to pay tuition to take a class is to get a passing grade so you can get that fancy piece of paper at the end of your journey. But intrinsically, what do you expect this class can give you? In this course, I am going to give you a working knowledge of some tools that will help make you more productive in the workplace. But if that's all I'm doing, I will feel like I failed you. Tools change constantly, and the buttons we're clicking today might be different tomorrow. Way more importantly, I'm trying to help you develop critical thinking skills, a mindset with which you can apply to any data analysis issue. And ultimately, I hope this course helps you to enhance your own technological agility so that you are more flexible in adapting to innovation, as it will certainly manifest in the coming years. All right, I'll get off my soapbox and point you to a couple of main takeaways I hope you emerge with. First, we are currently experiencing a technological revolution. But remember, disruption brings both risks and opportunities. Risks for those that choose not to keep up with technology, and opportunities for those that choose to get ahead of the pack. Hence, it's important to continuously upskill and adapt to a changing world. And that's why Accounting 2500 is more than just teaching you tools. We're looking to develop critical thinking, produce a mindset to approach data-centric questions, and promote both an attitude and capacity for technological agility. I'm committed to those goals, and I hope you'll join me.